on Thursday, the 23rd of November. Item 1 on the agenda is apologies for absence. No apologies for absence. Okay. Item 2, declaration of interest. There are none. Item 3 then is the minutes of the last meeting, pages 3 to 10 for correctness only. Someone prepared to move, please. Thank you, Councillor Jordan. Seconder, Don, thank you. Anyone against? No, thank you, that's carried. Item 4 on the accounts, the statement of accounts, but I believe we were going to take item 4 and 5 together. So Myrian, are you introducing it, and then Rob and maybe Gareth to finish off?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. So I'll introduce the item. So what you've got in front of you is there's a cover report, and as you said, we'll take the two sort of substantive items together. So the first one is the statement of accounts, the final statement of accounts, reflective of any changes that we've made following the audit. That's also been reviewed by Audit Wales, so that is a final version. There's then Audit Wales' ISA 260 report. So that is their audit report. It confirms their sort of main findings and their overall opinion of the accounts, which is a positive one, which is good. So yeah, and that report also includes any sort of points of note, whether that be uncorrected misstatements, corrected misstatements, or recommendations that we need to take into consideration for future years. Ultimately, what the report is asking for is for the committee to give authorisation for yourself as chair and Myron as Section 151 officer to sign the accounts, and then that will allow Audit Wales to do what they need to do before the end of this month in terms of certification, and that will then conclude the process. So I wasn't proposing to talk through the accounts themselves. Generally speaking, they're not too dissimilar to the draft version that you received earlier in the year. We could spend hours and hours going through the accounts. So unless there are any specific questions or areas you'd like us to comment on, my sort of suggestion is that perhaps if Gareth, on behalf of Audit Wales, is happy to talk through the ISA 260 report, and then we can take any questions following that.
Yeah, thank you for that, Rob. Can I just make it very clear that we're not here to discuss the statement of accounts 22-23, because obviously the draft statement of accounts, because obviously we've seen those previously in committee, and on that basis they were submitted to Audit Wales for progress in. Clearly we've had the audit, the report from Audit Wales now, which is giving Newport City Council an unqualified set of accounts, which is set out in the report of Gareth and the Auditor General. So if there are any questions whatsoever, they are to be based upon the Audit of Accounts report from Audit Wales, because obviously that picks up all the key areas which they identified when they went through the accounts. There's one recommendation at the end, but basically I think the key message is Newport are in a very good position. They've got an unqualified set of accounts, and I'm sure, as with last year, that Myrian and the team will pick up a lessons learned report, which will come to this committee, I hope, in sort of January 24, or maybe just a little bit later. So it's a lessons learned report, and it's questions on the points that Gareth had picked up, none of which I don't think are substantial, because otherwise we wouldn't get an unqualified set of accounts. So over to you, Gareth.
That's great. Thank you, Chair, and good evening, everyone. Just to introduce myself again, for anyone who doesn't know me, my name is Gareth Lucy. I'm the Audit Manager from Audit Wales, with responsibility for leading the financial audit of the Council this year. Also in today we've got Catherine Watts, our Audit Lead, who's dialing in, and next to me we've got Zen Ali, a member of our audit team. So we're here today to present our final Audit of Accounts report for 2022-23. So this summarises our work over our audit of the Council's draft financial statements for this year. Hopefully everyone's had a chance to read the report in detail. I think, like you said, Chair, I won't really go through every single detail in the report, but happy here just to run through a couple of the main headlines, just so members are aware of some of the key findings. The first main one, as has been pointed out, we're proposing an unqualified, so that's a clean audit opinion on the Council's accounts and also the accounts of Newport City Council Group, which incorporates Newport Transport Limited, which is wholly owned by the Council as well. So we audit both the Council and the Group's accounts. Ultimately, we're happy that this set of accounts presented to you today is a true and fair reflection on a material basis of the Council's position at year-end. As with all audits, really, there are a number of corrections that we identify. It's the nature of the beast, particularly with such a complex set of accounts such as these, running into hundreds of pages. Ultimately, there's a lot of technical guidance that needs to be followed, and some mistakes are made as part of that. But ultimately, we've listed those for your attention in Appendix 3 of the report. They're really just listed for your information. We're ultimately happy that the Council has corrected for those issues, and those corrections have been made appropriately in the version of the accounts that you see in front of you today. And as you'll see, there were only really 2 corrections that had any impact on the underlying reserves position of the Council. Everything else that we identified was largely presentational in nature. During the audit, there was one misstatement that we identified that does remain uncorrected. So that's raised on page 5 of our report, or page 183 of the agenda pack. This just relates to just a relatively minor error in calculation for valuation uplifts for certain property assets that are valued in a particular way by the Council. Ultimately, the methodology was sound. There was just a slight error just in the process, which led to a misstatement of £1.7 million. The Council's opted not to amend for that, simply because amending for it leads to a lot of knock-on impacts through the rest of the accounts. And this is an exercise that's carried out every year anyway. So ultimately, when this exercise is re-performed next year, effectively this issue is effectively washed through any recalculations that are made, and ultimately the amount is clearly immaterial to our audit opinion. There's just 2 other issues really that are raised in the report for members' attention. They're flagged up on page 6 of the report, or page 184 of the agenda pack. And that's just a couple of issues really. One of them is around assets with a 0 net book value held by the Council. And it was an issue that came up in last year's audit as well, just around the management of the fixed asset register, making sure that any assets that have a 0 residual value, which is perfectly valid to hold in the accounts, but just ensuring that those assets are still in use. So we did just find there was one relatively high-level asset that we did find as part of that exercise that was no longer in use and has now been removed from the accounts, the final version of the accounts. The second item just relates to a post-year-end event that occurred. Ultimately, it's a liability that falls on the Council that has arisen from the original housing stock transfer to Newport City Homes in 2009. So ultimately that came to light after the year-end, and the Council has correctly now recognised that cost in the 22-23 accounts. You'll note we make comment about sort of discussion about the classification of where that's placed, but ultimately from our perspective the key thing is the cost is recognised in the appropriate accounting period and the effect on reserves is appropriately recognised. Other than that, Chair, no further issues to report from us. I think from our perspective it's been a relatively smooth process. Our thanks as ever go out to the finance team of Newport and all involved in producing the annual report and accounts. It's been a very smooth process, particularly this year, given that we've had to deal with new auditing standards on our side, which have thrown certain challenges our way, as I'm sure my team would attest to. But ultimately, Chair, happy to take any questions that members may have.
Thank you, Gareth. Well, if there's nothing else, over to members for questions, if there are any. Don, you may need to help me because I actually can't see anyone now. The only people I like to see is Gareth and Catherine. But if there are any questions, I'm sure Don will shout out and say. No, no questions. Any comments? Councillor Cox?
Yeah, Chair, I'm sorry, I was struggling to raise my hand then. I don't think it's appeared yet, has it? But anyway.
Yes, it's up now. I've got you now.
Okay, all right. But I had three questions, if I could just ask those, Chair, please. Obviously, I fully accept the principle that this audit has shown that the council's accounts have been managed properly, etc., etc. So the questions don't really relate to the judgment made by the auditors, which obviously is positive. But it did seem to raise some issues which I think should be concerned for in terms of good governance of the council. A couple of issues that came out of there, and one was that I think it's on page 29. There's a pie chart there shows slippage, which and the capital programme, which was something like I think 30%. And I mean, the question was really, does that raise any issues for the financial management of the capital programme? Because I can see that, you know, that presumably that money is there to be reused in the following year. But I mean, is there an issue in the fact that the sort of time gap between when the work was originally planned and when it's eventually going to be completed has been extended by slippage? That there's an issue there in terms of the increased cost and the sort of amount of work basically that the council's getting done for its money. And if that is an issue, I wondered if there, you know, if there are any management processes that relate to that. The other question I just wanted to ask, please, Chair, was about the medium-term gap of 26.9 millions. I just to be quite clear about that, that is that the gap that is being predicted for when the budget is being set at the beginning of the next financial year, or is that where the council is likely to end up at the beginning of this financial year? I'm sorry, I wasn't absolutely clear about that.
Yeah, before the officers respond, Councillor Cox, can I say, I don't think both those questions are relevant in regards to the statement of accounts and the audit opinion we've now got. In my opinion, I'd be guided by the officers. I think those questions need to be posed in a different place and in a different forum. Clearly, the council will be setting its budget shortly. I should imagine it's working it up currently as we speak. The issue about capital slippage, I'm sure, will be picked up by Myrian, as will the medium-term financial plan and the proposed gap, because obviously Newport is one of 22 authorities who are experiencing severe difficulties in their financial affairs, some worse than others, but there is likely to be a big financial gap next year and in the coming years. So I think the questions really need to be put to a different place, and I think you'll get ample opportunity in dealing with them there. But if I'm wrong, I'm sure I'll be corrected by Myrian or Reece.
Thank you, Chair. I'm happy to say something on those questions, but I do understand your point as well that those questions are clearly issues for, you know, cabinet scrutiny, etc. as well. But very, very, very quickly, yes, this council has had a lot of slippage over a number of years now on its capital programme. It is a very large capital programme. And there's lots of reasons why we've had the slippage. Some of it is because of COVID, and we're still catching up there. Some of it is because of, you know, late Welsh Government's grants funding, which means that, you know, you don't get a chance to spend those funds in the year in question, so they are slipped. And some of it is capacity and, you know, planning issues within, within the council as well. It is a very large programme for the capacity that we have here in the council. Does it have an impact? I mean, I can't give you an answer, but clearly everybody knows that the inflation is an issue. So therefore, there's a very probably good chance that it has been. What are we doing about it? It is a regular item on the council's corporate management team agenda, and we've just established a capital assurance group, which is headed by the chief executive initially, which is taking a more forensic, detailed look at the delivery of the capital programme. So it's something that we recognise, and it's something that we're trying to resolve. But the bottom line is it's a very large capital programme. We're very, very demanding to deliver. In terms of the medium-term financial plan gap, that is something that we keep updated on a regular basis. We'll be bringing something to the Cabinet on that in due course. I believe the figures that you're quoting here in the narrative report would have been last February, but of course we would have been updating that throughout the last few months. So the current position is different, and that is being considered by Cabinet at this point. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Cox, does that deal with your questions? Oh, no response. Okay, are there any other questions, or are there any comments? No comments? Well, I'll make a few comments. Can I firstly thank our finance team, Irene and Rob, and the team working on the accounts this year to get us where we are. And obviously, there are some lessons to be learned, but we're in a good place where we got an unqualified set of accounts. Can we thank our colleagues from Audit Wales as well for their work on these accounts? Because clearly, I know Audit Wales have had some difficulty in staffing, but it's great to see that these are being reported now in November, where I understand some councils are not going to be done until at least January, possibly February. So that was great. I was pleased to hear from Gareth that they went smoothly. So thank you for that, Gareth. One thing I would ask, as you know, is given they must have gone as smoothly as possible, is there going to be any rebate in the fee? But I say that tongue in cheek because obviously you can consider it, because Anthony's also considering it for the Vale, because I asked him the same question, because everything's going very smoothly. So it's good news. And I don't want an answer tonight, but if you come to committee in January, just bring the cheque with you. So that's very grateful. But yeah, just say thank you to everyone for all the work they've done on these accounts. There are a set of recommendations contained, I believe, in the report. Someone prepared to move, please. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Harris. Is there a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Jordan. Anyone against? No, thank you. That's unanimous. So there we are. They can go off now, be signed, and presumably go off to council or cabinet, wherever they're going to go. So that's great news. And thank you, Catherine. If you'd like to leave the meeting now, you can. I'm sure you may want to stay and be invigorated by what we're going to discuss. But if you want to go, please do so. Same with you, Gareth, and your colleagues. So, but you may want to stay. But thank you very much for all you've done. Very grateful. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is item 6, which is the corporate risk register, quarter 2. Is that Paul?
Thanks, Chair. I'll introduce the item this time, give Paul a bit of a break.
Okay.
So, this report really is around the quarter 2 corporate risk register update, which covers the period from 1st of July to the end of September. Obviously, the corporate risk register monitors those risks which may prevent us as a council from achieving our strategic priorities and delivering our services. So just really in summary, before I hand over to Paul to provide a little bit more detail, at the end of Q2, there were 15 risks recorded on the corporate risk register that are considered to have a significant impact on us potentially achieving our objectives and legal obligations. Overall, there are 15 of those risks, 9 of which are identified as severe risks with scores from 15 to 25, 6 major risks which are scored from 7 to 14, and those are outlined in detail in the report. In comparison to Q1, the corporate risk register risk score has increased, which is in regard to Newport's property estate, and 1 risk score has decreased, which is the stability of social services providers. All other risks remain unchanged. So that's basically the summary overview, but I'll hand over to Paul to take you through a little bit more detail.
Thank you, Sean.
So, just following on from what Sean said, the risk score for the property estate has increased from 16 to 20 between Q1 and Q2. The full summary is detailed in the report. Tracy's also here, and as well as Reece, if there's any questions around that risk. The other risk is the stability of social services providers. That risk is in relation to care packages provided for adult services, in relation to residential and non-residential placements. Again, between Q1 and Q2, the risk score for that has decreased from 20 to 16. And again, the summary states in terms of the improvements made within adult services to manage that risk overall. So happy to take questions from the Chair or anybody else in the committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul, for that. And Norma, it's good to see you've joined us eventually. I think you were having difficulties.
I was. Sorry, I've been online for 35 minutes, but at least I'm here now.
No, it's good to see you. Great shame you missed a couple of the items because we can't hold it up, but it's good to see you here now.
Right, okay, thank you.
We're on Q2 corporate risk register. We just had the update from Sean and Paul, and we're on to questions now. So are there any questions from anyone?
Yes, Chair.
Yep.
Yes, Chair. I think it's just a typo error actually on page 217 where you had the risk score decreased. You've got 3, if there's only 1. You've got a 3 in the box.
Yeah. So, happy to take that question. So just to advise, that's overall in terms of corporate and service area risks. So the full detail is provided on page, that would be page 224, where you'll be able to see the other risk scores that have decreased. So there's full detail. So that includes service risks as well as any corporate risks. Okay.
Councillor Cox?
I just wanted to ask a question, please, Chair, about, I think it's on page 217, the risk that has increased quite substantially by 4 points in relation to the estate backlog. It refers there in the summary to the fact that it's increased work with our property partners, Newport North. So I'm not quite sure how that link works. Are we saying that the programme agreed with Norse is now taking far longer than was really envisaged when the programme was set up? Is that what that actually means?
I'm sure Paul can assist us there. Paul?
If I take that, Chair, thank you.
Oh, yeah, sorry, Tracy.
No problem. Well, I guess first to say that the detail of the risk is a matter for Cabinet, but will answer that question. So what that means is that the backlog maintenance on the estate has been costed at current prices, and the overall estimated cost of that has gone up. So it's not to do with any delays in the work programme. And the people that do the costing with us are, of course, the council's property partners, Newport North.
Okay. And it talked, the item then talks about the cost continuing to increase. I mean, presumably there's some kind of figure on that, is there, in terms of just what the backlog is now in terms of the maintaining the council's estate. And I just wondered if we could be given some sort of sense of where that lay.
There is a figure. I'd need to check on that. Although, again, that's probably outside of the scope of the committee. I mean, it's many millions, many millions. I think probably that the issue for the committee to note is that the annual budget that provides for maintenance of our properties is insufficient to keep pace with the maintenance required, and therefore, as a result of that, the maintenance backlog will continue to increase, hence the corporate risk continuing to be on the corporate risk register and now escalating. What I would say is in the mitigations and the actions there, the council is working through a programme to rationalise our assets, and if we had less assets, then consequently that maintenance budget would reach much further into the backlog and start to address that escalating problem. I guess it might be helpful at this point. I know, Chair, you said at the start that the training was cancelled, but I think probably we do need to rearrange the training. We cancelled because there was only one person here, so we did wait for a bit and agreed with the attendee. Thank you. That we probably need to do the training with the committee, because there is that, how do we assess the risks and what does that look like? And I think that would still be really useful to do if we could rearrange.
Yeah, I think that's essential, and I apologise for not being there remotely. As I said, I came in a bit late, as did Norma. As I said, Norma and I had a nice chat, but yes, I agree. I think that needs to come in. In regards to comment about the cost of thing, I don't know whether that is outside our remit, because ultimately there's a cost to this risk, and as you quite rightly say, if the council are working extremely hard on looking at its estate and clearly, reducing it so it reduces its overall cost, then that will be fairly significant, and hopefully give us as a committee the assurance that something is being done about it. But I think the indication is the same with lots of council. You've got a lot of old properties. I'm not saying you've got a lot of listed properties. The Civic Centre itself is listed. I'm sure the budget goes nowhere near to maintain that. So with the other commitments and priorities you have as a council, you've got to cut your cloth accordingly. So I think it may be worthwhile getting the training reset up, and clearly, let's make sure everyone attends as much as they can. So thank you for that, Tracy. Councillor Cox, did that deal with your question?
Yeah, it did. Yes, yeah. I mean, I'd be interested in the sort of figure, but I mean, my concern, Chair, about what I've asked tonight is that I would have thought that this issue of the estate backlog and the potential cost for this council would be very much the concern of this committee, which presumably one of its main functions is looking at the good management of the council's money. So I'm not quite sure why a question like that is, is regarded as not particularly relevant. And but anyway, I'll leave it there. I was very happy with the answer. Thank you.
No, that's great. And I think the difficulty they've got as officers is clearly if they came to us with every situation where there's a deficit in the budget or a demand on the accounts, we'd be here forever and a day, because obviously social services will have it, highways, I'd hate to think how much highway repairs are going to cost the council if it had to do it. But I think, as Myron said earlier, council's got to cut its cloth accordingly. So it will never, ever, I wouldn't have thought, be in a position to deal with everything it's got outstanding as at the moment. And, it just needs to be worked on as they go through the budget. So thank you for that, Councillor Cox. Norma. You're on mute, Norma.
All right, thank you, Chair. I had a similar issue to raise as Councillor Cox, really, because I understand the challenge. I think we all understand the challenge. It's really difficult with the financial situation, and I'm sorry if coming in late. But one thing that struck me was, have we got an asset management plan in place? And have we got some sort of strategic approach? Because it's difficult, isn't it, when we're just doing repairs, reactive repairs, because it can cost us more money in the long term. And that's the bit that worries me in terms of this longer term could cost the council a lot more money unless we have some form of strategic approach to managing our assets.
Tracy?
Thank you, Chair. In terms of, there is an asset management approach and a published strategy. However, I think it's fair to say that we're in agreement that that needs a review, and part of the asset rationalisation work is in fact to create a new plan, and we have a date for scrutiny on that new plan, which I think is March next year, and that will obviously refresh where we are currently, the way we're able to rationalise the estate, and also look at future needs and demands, because we need to be very careful not to rationalise things that we need to address other risks perhaps. So that strategy is being worked through currently. There is a strategy, it's published, but I would say that it needs work, and we have a date to go back to scrutiny on that.
Thank you, Tracy. Norma, anything else? No. Thank you for that, Tracy. Thank you very much. If there are no other questions from members, are there any comments? No, there are no comments. If we move to recommendations, then we're asked to consider the contents of the report. So we note the contents of the report and assess the risk management arrangements of the authority. And obviously, Paul, Tracy and Sean can pick up the points that have been raised by members in their questioning. Someone prepared to move, please? Thank you, Dawn. Can I have a seconder?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Cox. Anyone against? No, that's carried. Thank you very much. Item 7, Governance and Audit Committee Annual Report 22-23.
Thank you, Chair. So this is the draft Governance and Audit Committee Annual Report for the year 22-23. And the report, or the report itself, demonstrates how the committee has met its terms of reference, which is within the council's constitution. So the cover report summarises the areas of work that the committee has looked at. So in the summary section, you'll see the internal audit plan, progress on that. Risk, which you've just been discussing now, the Council's financial statements also today, but also things like treasury management, etc. The annual report deals with those in a reasonable amount of detail, and it also concludes that the committee has carried out its work robustly and diligently. So this report, if approved here today, will now go to the council report. We just need to confirm the process for that in terms of who will actually speak to the actual report, but we will deal with that after this meeting and sort of confirm that as appropriate, Chair. But this annual report will go to the council next from this meeting. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Myron. Are there any questions, anyone? No question. Oh, Norma.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not sure how appropriate this is, or whether there should be reference to it in the report. But as a committee, we did express quite a bit of concern about the cut in the audit team, in the complement of it. And I'm not sure whether it is appropriate to have reference to that in the report or not.
Yeah, Myron?
Thanks, Chair. I think I'll just think on that one for a while. I'm not going to offer you an answer quite now. I think it's a fair comment, Norma. So I'm going to just speak to colleagues about that one, and if it is appropriate that it goes in there, then we will put a reference in there for it. It certainly is a part of the audit plan and the resources within the audit team, and therefore the size of the audit plan. So maybe we can weave something in from that angle, because I do remember that you were concerned. So yeah, I will put something in, having had a conversation with a couple of colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you, that's helpful. Thank you.
Chair, Sorry, it's Rhys.
Sorry, Rhys. Yeah, just so you know.
All I would say is the reporting period for this report is to March the 31st this year, and the issues around the internal audit resource were in the 23-24, so in the next financial year report, if you want to pick it up in that, I think that's probably more appropriate. This is a backward look to last year, I think, isn't it, in the report?
Yeah, it was raised last year, obviously, as part of the budget submission, so... I think, maybe just mention needs to be made. There may be a paragraph to say Audit Committee raised it as a concern. Obviously, it was raised as a concern, but it got taken out. So I think that may be useful. I think the only other issue I think that may need to be picked up, because obviously it's the first one we've done, and hopefully we can improve on it next year, is comment about the number of call-ins we've done. With regards to areas of the audit work where we've had unsatisfactory or limited, and the benefits that's created to the directorate. So, obviously, I think my own view would be is I would hope that council see that as positive, and hopefully the directors see it as positive, because on the basis we're not out to catch them, but we're out to sort of improve service delivery for the benefit of the citizens of Newport. So I don't know whether your view on that, Myrian, is just maybe a couple of paragraphs or lines about the number of call-ins.
Yep, that's fine. I'll do that. That's fine.
Thank you, Myrian. That's great. And can I just say thank you for the team for bringing this together, because again, it is the first one we've done. I think maybe we can have a chat about how it's done next year, because maybe it just involves members of governance and audit sort of putting some feedback in, if they wish to, in regards to how we think we've performed ourselves, and maybe a 360-degree review as to how officers and others think we've performed, because I think learning lessons and learning areas of improvement are important to us all. So we don't necessarily all get it right. And I think, it's just a continuous learning environment we're in. So maybe we can think about that next year. Okay, if there are no other questions, I don't know whether there's any comments. No, you see the recommendation in report that we agree the annual report subject to those minor amendments to be made by Myrian for submission to council in order to meet the requirements. Someone prepared to move, please? Thank you, Councillor Jordan. Seconder, Councillor Harris. Anyone against? No, thank you. That's carried. Item 8 on the report then is the verbal update. Rhys, are you going to do 8 and 9?
I will do my best, Chair.
You always do, Rhys.
Thanks very much. So I'll start off with Children's Services looked after safeguarding children's money. And I'll try not to call on my colleagues, Jay and Rhian, who are sat at the other side of the room for this. So this is just a brief update on where we are with that one, pending the director coming in with a written report, I believe, Chair, in the next meeting.
Yeah, I think just to update members, the reason why Rhys is doing this is the director, I understand, got a prior commitment and wasn't likely to come until at least 6 o'clock, and that could have slipped. Maybe I was a bit over optimistic that I thought we could conclude this this meeting fairly swiftly, which hopefully we will do. So therefore the meeting will be closed before the director arrives. So just like to thank Rhys for updating us on this occasion on those 2 items, and then the director will come along in January, I think, and give a fuller update, and obviously members will have the opportunity to question the director appropriately. Thank you, Rhys.
Okay, so safeguarding children's money, I think overall assessment from the service here at the moment is that good progress has been made in implementing the changes to meet the audit requirements from the previous unsatisfactory audit reports. I'll give you a brief overview of those things. I think start off with policy and process. Those have been updated and shared with the relevant teams to ensure that future activity in relation to children's money will be supported with the right systems at the right time in the right place. There's ongoing support being put in place through additional staffing resource into that team and to take in that activity, and work undertaken in the overarching systems that record that information to ensure that the right teams have the right information, and that now links back in the WCCIS system, which is the overarching system for social services, to make sure they're recording the right information and relevant financial documentation. A range of parties being involved within that work, from team managers, independent reviewing officers, etc., to ensure that children and people are aware that they have financial settlements, and to make sure those processes are in place and within their pathway plans. And there's also a process being put in place for unclaimed junior ISAs as well, to ensure that they are met. So overall, good progress on that, but Sally will give a further update verbally in writing in the next meeting as required.
Yeah, thank you, Rhys. So can we just have just someone to move that we note that verbal update, please? I'm sure someone's showing. Yeah, thanks, Don. Thanks, Don. Another seconder? Thank you, Councillor Cox. Thank you very much. All in favour? Or those against? Thank you. Next, thank you.
Yeah, and adoption allowances was next then, Chair.
Yeah. Okay,
so again, briefly just go through that. So actions are in process on this. So again, they involve both an increased staffing resource into that team to ensure that those adoption allowances are managed better, and also a bespoke training package for those individuals within the new team to ensure that they have got resilience, which was one of the issues picked up within audit previously, and that there are increased individuals who are able to undertake that work. Whilst they are small numbers, obviously, they do have a big impact on individuals. They're also continuing to undertake a review of all adoption allowances, and that will go on for a 3-year period following the adoption process. Processes have been updated, and where they are is there's a new timetable of processes that will be in place by December this year. There's a review of all adoption allowances underway, and that should be undertaken by the end of this month. And there are review periods. There was a review in June 23, and there will be a new review of the entire process in June 24.
Thank you, Rhys. Thank you for that. Again, can I have someone to move that we note the report, please? Someone to move. Thank you, Don. Can I have a seconder? Thank you, Norma. Anyone against? No. Thank you very much. Item 10 is the work programme. Obviously, we've got the work programme before us. The only items, obviously, to pick up are that we do need a written report now from the Director of Social Services in regards to the safeguarding children's money and the audit of the adoption allowances. So the two verbal updates that Reece has just given, we'd like a report from the Director now setting out in full where we are as at then the 25th of January. Obviously, apart from that, you've got the programme there. Are there any questions from anyone? Any comments? No? Someone prepared to move, please, that we endorse the proposed schedule for the meeting subject to those amendments. Thank you, Norma. Can I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Dawn. Seconder. Anyone against? No, thank you. That's carried unanimously. Item number 11 is date of the next meeting. I understand the next meeting will be on the 25th of January, 2024. So before we finish, can I thank everyone for all their input this year into the committee. I'm sure you've had it said before. Wish you all a very Merry Christmas. I know it's a bit early, but and a very prosperous new year. Possibly for councils, I don't know, but you never know what may happen. Someone may win the national lottery and donate some money. And on that basis, can I say thank you very much, and the meeting is now closed.